Age obviously is the biggest. You know very little about business, if anything, at that age. The biggest issue was probably people's perception. You're constantly entering rooms where you're judged based on how you look and your age, not so much what your capabilities are. You're trying to prove something to other people more than you are to yourself. You try and do things twice as fast and you try and come up with all the right answers as quickly as possible. But at the end of the day, the only way that you feel like you belong is by showing up, being consistent, driving results and actually doing the work.
Congratulations, you are the 2025 Franchise Woman of the Year FCA
you.
Award
Yes.
holder. I'm Vanessa Wilmot from Geotech Information Services. I'm also the FCA Chairperson for Women in Franchising in Australia. Welcome to our Women in Franchising podcast series. Today, I'm joined by Caitlin Macumber, who is a franchisee for Plus Fitness. Hello, Caitlin. Welcome. How are you going today?
I'm good. How are you going?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Thanks so much for having me.
Glad you could be here with us today. So first of all, could you just tell us a little bit about how you got into franchising? What was your journey and what does that look like for you?
Absolutely. So for myself in particular, I was always exposed to franchising from quite a young age. And I think that's probably one of the main things that gave me a bit of a step up with entering into this environment in this specific industry. My family was in franchising back in the day, so it was always around us. Leaving school and then looking at what sort of career options were available, that's where I started to really do my research of, okay, well, how can I take that next step up with my career? What's a career pathway that I can jump into? And what's going to help me do that with the minimal knowledge that I had as a 23-year-old? So that's where it all really started.
Excellent. So it sounds like franchising was really in your blood with all that background with your family and everything like that. So 23 years old, that's pretty young to
Yes.
get into franchising, be a franchisee and a business owner.
Yes.
That's a very, very young age. And those things are actually quite tricky to be a business owner. So being a young woman in franchising and in the fitness industry, what was some of the biggest challenges or adversities that you had to overcome as part of that?
Age obviously is the biggest. You know very little about business, if anything, at that age. You think you know what you know the operations. So I was previously working in the fitness industry before stepping into a 24/7 gym franchise. So I knew how to operate the club specifically. I knew how to loosely manage teams based on the minimal knowledge that I had from my previous workforce experience. But when you look back now, I was very underqualified. And I was very naive, and stepping into the franchise world really helped to put some guardrails to protect that process for me. So it helped that development come through. Being young though, being 23 and even being a female at that age and being a business owner, the biggest issue was probably people's perception. You're constantly entering rooms where you're judged based on how you look and your age, not so much what your capabilities are. And not saying that I had a lot of capabilities back then, but it was that preconception that was sort of put onto you before anything really eventuated. So that was probably one of the most challenging parts. I found that when that happens, for me in particular, you're trying to prove something to other people more than you are to yourself. So that was a lesson over a few years of you try and do things twice as fast and you try and come up with all the right answers as quickly as possible, just to prove that you belong in those rooms. But at the end of the day, the only way that you feel like you belong is by showing up, being consistent, driving results and actually doing the work. So over time that started to subside, which I was thankful for.
Yeah.
But that was probably one of the biggest challenges of just that lack of confidence when you enter different situations.
Yeah, and it's a shame that you felt that way, but I guess that then became part of your motivation or to really sort of prove yourself, even though you shouldn't have to. And like you said, to be a part of that room and be that business owner. So that's actually really inspiring. And speaking of which, congratulations, you are the 2025 Franchise Woman of the Year FCA Award holder, which is an amazing achievement. You should be really proud of yourself.
Very proud of that.
That's amazing. So on that, I know you're very big about giving back as part of that. We've had those sort of conversations before that, you're very committed and wanting to give back and as part of getting that award. So at the moment, so rumor has it that you have been spending a bit of time in Singapore, so helping the
I have.
Plus Fitness brand expand into Singapore. So how did that come about and what inspired you to take that on? Tell us a bit about that.
It was an interesting journey. It was a long journey, but a quick journey all at the same time. So I guess the first part of it, which is more of the longer journey, is for the last 5 years, I've been incredibly intentional about self-development, upskilling, growing my leadership style, learning as much as possible, and particularly putting myself in rooms that make me quite uncomfortable to force me to grow. And through that process, even though owner-operator lifestyle is great, it naturally forced me to start to drive for something bigger and better. So the more that my skill and my confidence grew in my abilities, I started to feel more like myself, which sounds a little bit weird, but you don't know who you are until you start to feel it. And the more that I entered those environments and the more that I engaged in that next level of business entrepreneurship, everything started to fall into place and feel quite calm through the chaos.
Yes.
And through that, the strive then to look at what's the next big thing, because owner-operator doesn't really suit who I feel like I am anymore. So through that, this is the long journey of growing, mentoring, having different mentors, having different coaches, and then starting to figure out what could be that next step. So I looked at a lot of different options in industry, out of industry, what's something that could really start to challenge me and what could be that next big step or move forward. And eventually Singapore popped up. And that's probably the fast track version at the end of, as soon as that popped up, things started to align. It's obviously with my franchisor and my franchising partners now. So there's a little bit of comfort and not control, but you know what you're in for. Some of the people will work across the two. So it's a little bit not safer, but it's more comfortable to enter knowing a few people that are going to help with that journey. And Singapore in particular just really excited me. It's not so much the country itself. It's never a place that I thought I would pick to possibly move or work in. But what our industry is doing over there and the roadmap that's ahead of us is really exciting to see. So there's just so much opportunity. It's a different way of working. It's starting from the ground up again, but on such a larger scale.
Well, it's so great that you've been able to build that confidence and the growth over time and really step into something, like you said, having that growth mindset outside your comfort zone. I think that's what makes you quite inspirational, is thinking about, you're always thinking about the next thing, how you can give back, how you can, apply your growth and your confidence now in a different way. So having said that, though, I imagine there would have been quite a few challenges or some adversities that you've faced as part of the your Singapore journey at the moment. So is there something that you would like to share on that in terms of, how you've found that? Has there been challenges
definitely.
that you've had to overcome?
There's been a lot of challenges that I wasn't expecting. Timelines is a big thing. Everything works off the perfect timeline and everything's so contingent on the next part working or being achieved by a certain point. So that's been something that I expected, but not to the degree that we're experiencing at the moment. Probably the biggest thing that has been an internal challenge for me, there would be two, actually. One is, how do you get yourself ready for the change? Because even though it's franchising and it's with the same franchisor, and it's the same brand and the product and ops and everything that comes with that, it's a different ballgame. Everything's different. The country's different. The HR regulations are different. The building works are different. How you contract out is different. So getting myself and my family ready for that has probably been more of a shock than I thought it would, of how do you start to separate your business in Australia from what you're doing. And what ties into that, which is probably the second biggest challenge that I've faced, is you build, especially for myself, I'm a big believer in building strong teams. And I love the team that I've been able to build in Australia, but they're not coming along for that journey overseas. So that's actually been something that shocked me a little bit, that I wasn't anticipating, that I didn't really expect, of how do you create that separation between home soil to what your personal next step is.
Yes.
But the people that you work with day to day and the work that you put into having that team that you love being around and a part of, they're not necessarily coming along for the journey, or most of them actually don't even know right now. So it's how do you keep that void between being back in a founder mindset where you're doing all of this additional work and it's you pretty much ticking all the
Yes.
boxes as best you can while still trying to manage what you've already got established, and where does the string break?
Yeah.
So that's been something that's been interesting to work through. I think I'm glad I wasn't aware of it when I entered it, because I think we're coming out of the other side and everything's starting to fall back in place now. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's been a challenge. Going international, especially with that sort of step up, you're back in starting from the ground up again. So even though you might know how to operate and you know how to do A, B, C, and D, the process is the same. So it very much, I do catch myself sometimes sitting back and thinking, what am I doing? How do we even expect to pull this off? But it's just that sort of not self-sabotage, but just imposter syndrome of just reminding you've got the team, I'm choosing to do it in a franchise for a certain reason as well. So having that support mechanism behind us, having that new group of people, the group that we have for Plus Fitness Asia, everyone has such unique experiences and perspectives that it's going to be a really powerful team once we get things underway. So it's just reminding these are just the weeds at the beginning, and there will be bigger challenges when we start, but they're the challenges that I'm used to. It's you're almost exposed to the startup challenges that I haven't had to worry about for 14 years.
Yes.
So that's probably the biggest hurdle that I've overcome so far.
And I guess there'd be like cultural differences as well, are you finding?
There are, but those challenges don't really concern me yet. I put the trust in the team that we have over there, that it's their job to guide me and it's my job to make sure that they know I need that guidance. So culturally, I'm not too concerned. I know it will be different, but it's until we hit the ground and we have that first club, they're not things I can control today.
And what's the timing on that? Are you allowed to disclose that at the moment?
I mean, we're actively working. There's a few things going on with that whole change piece. There's a few things that are very contingent to get that underway. So it's every day's sort of ticking.
Yes.
I would love to be open tomorrow. Let's put it that way. So as soon as the green light's pressed, it'll be full steam ahead, and hopefully that's not too far off.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that. So it's very, very exciting. So what one final piece of advice would you give to women, particularly young women that are entering the franchise industry or looking at becoming a franchisee or a business owner? What is something that you wish you had have known when you were younger, or what's one piece of advice that you would give?
I would probably say back yourself as quickly as you can, because no one else is going to back you until you do. And especially if you are a female entering the workforce, it's getting a lot better, but there's always going to be a stigma that you put on your own shoulders. And if you're putting that on your own shoulders, people will pick up on that energy, or you might start to see that coming through other parties when that may not be their intention. There's always there was an article, and it's an interesting quote that always used to say that males apply for roles if they tick 50% of the boxes of the qualifications, but females wait until they hit 100%.
Yes.
And that's always something in the back of my mind of, you can always learn. I think females are quite adaptive if that's who they are at their core. If you're choosing to be a female in business, you will be adaptive because you don't have a choice.
Yes.
So it's learning how do you grow those skills first, and then trust in your abilities, trust that you've done the right research, trust that you've found the right partners, and that whatever you don't know, you're willing to learn. And as long as you've got that under your belt, I would just dive in and hope for the best and do the work that you need to do. I would also recommend don't settle your standards, because that's one thing that I do find as females, or even just any leadership, over time, if people aren't rising to the level that you expect, if you're a high achiever and you want to demand, in quotation marks, that work ethic, don't settle for something well and truly under that, because it's just going to create you issues. You will find the right people that will come onto that journey with you. Whatever your business is that you're trying to establish, however you want it to look, if it's high achievement, high standards, don't try and cut those down just to appease other people. Try and upskill them and lead them the right way. And if they're still not cut out for what your expectation is, let them go and find someone else.
Great advice.
yeah.
So back yourself. I think having that growth mindset as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, not settling. I think that's some amazing advice. And I think that's really, really important, particularly for a lot of anybody, but particularly young women sort of coming through as well. So thank you so much, Caitlin. Thank you for
very
joining us on
welcome.
our Women in Franchising podcast.
It's an absolute pleasure.
We look really forward to hearing more about your journey because it feels like your journey's, even you've been doing this for a little while, there's still a long way to
Just
go.
about to start again.
And exciting stuff on the horizon for you. So well done.
It's very exciting, and it's good to know through franchising that it's not just a one-stop shop. It's not open one store or open one partnership and that's where your journey ends. You can really mold it to whatever your career aspirations are or whatever you want to deliver to the world. So,
excellent. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our Women in Franchising podcast. What we're aiming to do is bring you stories from all over Australia on women's journeys, challenges, adversities, and the success stories of women in franchising as well. So thank you so much for joining us, and make sure that you tune in next time. Thank you.